Back on our NHL offseason special presented by Four Leaf Federal Credit Union, John Giannone, Ken Daneyko, and Thomas Hickey. The Rangers will head toward the June 27th draft with a decision to make about the 12th overall pick, but without their franchise player from more than a decade, and that is Chris Kreider, who last week was traded to the Anaheim Ducks. The question now becomes, guys, as Chris Drury continues to try to rebound from a disappointing last season, how do the Rangers fill the many roles that Kreider played for this team? Special teams, regular, 5-on-5 in every category.
It's one of those things that I think when you just look at last season, you go, well, he didn't really produce well. They'll be fine without him. That's not the case. He's been there for so long, and yes, they're losing a player. It's someone with the pedigree that he has and the amount of goals, third all-time in New York Rangers history. They're also losing a presence in the dressing room. They're losing a teammate and a guy, by all accounts, was extremely well respected. And how do you come back and replace that? Well, it's certainly going to be by committee. When I look at the Rangers, they do have some youth on the rise. Will Cooley, just a phenomenal season last year. He's a left winger that plays with some pizzazz in his game. Oh, that's something that Chris Kreider did. That could certainly help when you look further down their prospect pool with guys like Gabe Perreault and Othman, guys that they've drafted. Certainly some chances, but it's more of a committee approach for me, Dano, because Chris Kreider, although he took a step back a little bit last year, it was pretty brief. It was just for 1 year. That's a lot of goals that he usually commands.
He's been a dominant force for a lot of years here in New York, and you have to make some harsh decisions every once in a while, especially today. Today's game, it's not easy. Fan favorite, a guy that's been an all-time Ranger, coming from a guy that played in one organization, and I took a lot of pride in it. A lot harder to do in today's game, especially when your team dips the way the Rangers did and didn't make the playoffs, but it gives other young players that you mentioned, the Othmans, the Cooleys, Perreault's, opportunities here. They're going to miss him. Of course they are, and Anaheim's glad to have him, and I have no doubt he will bounce back from a tough season by Chris Kreider. Every player goes through it. I don't care who you are. A lot of the Rangers went through the dip and the reason why they didn't make the playoffs. Doesn't mean next year all those guys don't get back to where they were from a couple of years ago and they're a playoff team again. But you do have to make those decisions. I don't envy a general manager because you balance loyalty and a guy that you have so much respect for, like a Chris Kreider, and then, but sorry, we didn't make the playoffs. We've got to make changes. So it's a tough balancing act for me, but I wish Chris Kreider the best, certainly in Anaheim.
Speaking of decisions and tough balancing acts, Chris Drury will have to make a decision within 48 hours of draft night on June 27th, whether to keep the 12th overall pick this year or give it to the Pittsburgh Penguins, which was part of a deal that was made when the Rangers acquired JT Miller. Originally, that first-round pick, conditional as it was, went to the Vancouver Canucks, but then the Canucks traded it to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So now the Penguins have the opportunity to get the Rangers' 12th overall pick. If the Rangers don't give that pick away, Thomas, they'll hold it. They'll hold on to it and use it this year. If they give it away, then the question becomes they won't have a first-round pick next year if the Pittsburgh Penguins decide to, if the Rangers give that one. So now, do the Rangers want to keep next year's pick so that they can this summer maybe offer up an offer sheet to somebody? It's convoluted, but it is a lot to digest.
It's so simple, yet it's so complicated. Right? In one sense, I look at this and I go, okay, well, if Chris Drury thinks that his hockey team is going to be better next season, which by all accounts you would expect the Rangers to be better than the 12th worst team in the league, then you just take the pick this year because you know you're not going to be that bad. But John, you make a good point. When you do talk about offer sheets, it's not about the pick that you're selecting this season. It's next year. Is that a route that we're going to see other teams go down because we saw offer sheets become a big thing last year? Well, maybe they want that flexibility, but for one thing, I think it would be an indication by Chris Drury on how he sees his group, but all of a sudden it gets complicated once again when you talk about the potential for offer sheets. So I'm really interested, but I would expect that they expect to be better than they were last year, and that might simplify one end of this complicated equation.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. I think the Rangers are, for the most part, and Chris Drury and his staff are going to say this is a one-off. We had a bad year. It happens. This league is tight. The margin for error is very slim. We just didn't find our game consistently enough, and we didn't make the playoffs. So I would think they can bounce back. But along the way of adding some guys and letting those young guys develop as well. So it's sustainable the rest of the way. I have no idea what he's going to do. He's going to pick the brain of a lot of his staff and say, what do you think, guys? And sometimes it's a guess, right?
And there have been some pretty
Or if
decent
there's a guy you're talking about, John, next year that they do think they can offer sheet, they got to think that far in advance.
And next year's draft is supposed to be deeper than this year's draft, so the Rangers might want to hold on to next year.
And that 10th overall pick, if you hold it like the Islanders, you're giving that away to someone. That could be the first overall pick, as we're seeing for Gavin McKenna.
Nobody
and it would be a division.
You never know.
And it would be a division
Dano.
with Pittsburgh, which could also impact their decision as well. So a lot to digest. But when you consider in recent years, Marty Necas was a 12th overall pick, Matt Boldy was a 12th overall pick, Anton Lundell was a 12th overall pick. There has been some talent at that level. So really, it is a lot to think about and decide between now and the 48 hours between now and June 27th, when Chris Drury has to ultimately make that decision.